All right, listeners, as promised, it's Champ Talk this week, and I'm bringing you the reigning, undefeated Rocky Mountain Pro champion, Dustin Uhrich.
That's
Dustin, how
right.
are you, brother?
Good, man. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Enjoying this month of October. We've been diving into some Halloween Havoc things and meeting some new people. We had a first last week with one of your co-mates there, Lilith Grimm.
Yep.
But things are going great. How about on your end?
Pretty good, man. Just waiting to get back in the ring, and I'm still doing all right. I still got my belt here, so things
That's
can't be
right.
too bad over here. So
Yeah, you're still holding old pretty there. That's for sure.
that's right. I'm just hitting the gym and keeping ready for whenever I get back in the ring for my next opponent. So whoever
Most
wants to step up for the challenge.
right on, right on. That's good news to hear, Dustin. For my listeners out there, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself? Maybe mention when you got your start and why you got your start here in wrestling.
So um, I started getting into wrestling when I was real little, like as far back as I can remember, because growing up, my dad was always into it. My uncles were into it. My grandpa was into it. So they was always like a regular thing for them to watch. And then, so of course, I grew up watching it too. And I, like I said, as long as I can remember, I've been watching wrestling. The first thing I really remember that stuck out to me that really hooked me in was watching Hulk Hogan. And I know I've seen some stuff before this, but the first thing that really, like, the first real, like, hard, like, memory I can remember was the feud with the Mega Powers, like Macho Man and Hulk
Yes.
Hogan and Miss Elizabeth. And that's probably why those two are still to this day my all time favorites is Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. And, but I remember watching that stuff live on TV and I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, and so grew up for years watching it, and I always knew I wanted to do something athletic because I was always doing sports and everything, but did wrestling all through like from like fifth grade, like all the way through high school and everything. I knew that I had to do something, like I said, with sports. But then after watching like old tapes of like Hogan and Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, that was like that's what set it in stone for me. I was like, just watching Hulk Hogan, like my favorite, do the impossible, beating the undefeated Giant, supposedly,
Yeah.
15 years, and slamming the 525-pound Giant. And I was like, oh, man, there's nothing better than that. Like, I was like, I have to do this one day. Like, I don't care, like, where, how, what, but I have to be a pro wrestler someday. So I kept on doing like the amateur wrestling through school, and so I knew that could only help me. A lot of guys had a background, and um, so I was like, all right, that's the next best thing right now until I can do the pro wrestling like later on. And
Sure.
so my my goal was when I graduated, I was going to have some money saved up, and I was going to move to Atlanta and go to the WCW power plant. And 3 months before I graduated, that didn't happen because they went out of business because they were bought out by
They
the
shut it
WWF at the time.
down.
Yeah, so I was like, well, there goes that. So, and I had no idea where any other schools were, like I just knew of that one because it was WCW, it was a big deal, and that one was advertised, but there wasn't a lot of other ones that were really advertised. So I just after school, I was like, well, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just kept working and saw some commercials late night. I'm staying up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, just on the weekends, trying to watch WWF like TV. Like Shotgun Saturday Night or whatever at the time and stuff. And um, so I see like a local promotion on there, and so I'm like, all right, well, this is cool. I was like, oh, this is in Colorado. And I'm like, oh, I got to check this place out. And me and some buddies went down there and watched a couple shows, and it, it wasn't amazing shows, but it was pro wrestling. So I was like, all right, this is cool. I got to figure out how to get into this. And got like a flyer or something for the school, called up the guy, went to this guy's house, went to do so I was gonna, do my first training in the ring, and this is like fall of 2003, and of course, because pro wrestling, like, it's a really unique experience because I get to the address and it's at this guy's house, and I was like, oh great, like this isn't even a real school, but I was like, all right, it's a step into wrestling, so I'll do it. I'm like, all right, go to this guy's backyard. He's got like a ring set up, and this guy is like mostly like he's like he doesn't have very good sight at all. So I'm like, really, this guy who's like mostly blind is going to train me in his backyard to wrestle? I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. So, but like there was me, him, and then there was two other guys there, and those two other guys I had seen on the local shows when I went down there, and one of them was still pretty new. Like he wasn't there much longer than I was, or before I was, and he became one of my good friends, and I ended up wrestling with him later on.
Sure, yeah.
And so I was like, all right, we did all kinds of crazy training that day. I did more bumps in that day, more rolls in that ring than I have in probably like years. It was ridiculous. Like, I've never felt so terrible in my life. My head hurts so damn bad, and like the worst migraine ever. But I was like, this sucks, but this is the greatest day ever because it's my first step into pro wrestling, and that was always like my dream. So the only bad part is shortly after that, my car got stolen that I had, and so I didn't have a car, and that place was like an hour away from where I lived, so it's not like it was easy for me to get there.
Oh man.
So I had to wait and save up some money, got a new car, and then like a little over a year later, I was like, all right, gonna get a car. I was like, I gotta find somewhere to train. I'm like, if I can find somewhere better, I'll go there, but if not, I'm going to go back to the same guy. But
wait. So you're telling me that you're going to turn down a blind trainer because, you're looking for better?
Sorry. I know, what was I thinking, right? But
go ahead. Sorry.
That's the dream, right? But no, but luckily I found I don't know if I think I went to a show and I got like a flyer from somebody, and it said something about another wrestling school, and so I called this guy up. And just talking to him, everything sounded pretty good. And he's like, come on down to the show, watch the show, come talk to me and the other trainer after the show and see what you think. And it was an awesome show. It was like night and day from the one that I went to before with those other local guys. And so after that, I was like, I have to train at this place. These guys are way better. And so I talked to him, and like a couple weeks later, I started training in like the end of 2004, and this was with the Altitude Pro Wrestling Academy, the APWA, and they were like the training school for this company called Fusion Pro Wrestling, and so that's where I got my start, and that's where that guy from the other local company, my buddy Sensational Paul Diamond, he came over there, and so I ran into him again. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I already know somebody here, and so it was a good transition, and but yeah, I started training late 2004. This place wasn't the greatest training place, but it was a lot better. This was an old tile warehouse. So It's a step up from a backyard,
Yeah, not a backyard or a basement, right? I got you.
Yeah, eventually we moved into, always a little better and better over the years. And, but I had my first match in June of 2005. So, like I said, it was a little weird road to get there, but I got there, and
definitely a different road. That's why I bring you guys on this Eeez N Beez podcast here, so my listeners can hear these interesting stories and hear the struggles or the successes or whatever it takes. Because Dustin, a lot of times people like you and many, many others go away under the radar, overlooked. You got to start somewhere. And basically, you know, people out there would never know about a blind trainer or, you know, somebody that's been in this business for over 15 years or more that just never has made it to the big time. And that doesn't mean nothing. And that's the limelight that I'm trying to bring upon you guys at Rocky Mountain is, you know, just because you're not on TNT or USA every week doesn't mean nothing. You guys are putting in just as much effort, just as much work. And, you know, that's like I said, that's why I bring you on. So you guys can explain a little bit to my listeners about that stuff. And also, you know, we can dive into some of your career or something, you know, like we like to talk about here, like breakfast. So not to switch subjects on you really quick here, but I am going to do a little scrambled egg on you. What's your favorite breakfast item?
I always got to go with some cereal. I mean, there's lots of other stuff. I love breakfast is like the best meal, but even ever since I was little, cereal's my go-to. Like,
Okay.
I don't always eat it as much anymore, but like usually in the morning I'll just grab a protein shake and go on with the day. But my favorite one to have would be if I got time, especially, or you know, once in a while I'll change it up and just have a bowl of cereal. And
Okay.
sometimes I'll try to stay good and eat like a little bit better one, you know. But the best one is definitely like the sugary ones, of course, you know, like Fruity Pebbles and Captain Crunch, and
Definitely.
you know, like I was telling you before, like the best one back in the day was kind of like Captain Crunch, but it was that WWF Superstars, like was awesome. It's really close to Captain Crunch, and plus you got those little action flip books in the thing. You got like a
That was the whole reason to get it.
and Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan little flip books, and
Man, they need to remake that. You know, that would be pretty cool to see that again in our time.
yeah, all the other kids nowadays would be like, "This thing is lame. What the hell is that?" But
yeah,
like, hey,
right.
this is cool.
It doesn't come with an electronic. What are you telling me? I don't want this.
Like where do you plug this in at?
Right. Well, cool. That's interesting. I have been asking all my interviewees that, you know, the same question, what their favorite breakfast item is. And on Rocky Mountain, it's definitely it's scattered. You know, you got cereal. I got a Hazard a couple weeks ago. Tell me about a breakfast pizza he makes. Lilith Grimm, all she cares about is her Starbucks. So cool, good to know. We'll keep that going in the future. I got Jumbo coming on here in a couple of weeks, and I'll have to ask him what his favorite item is.
There you go.
Back in, so we all know, all my listeners out there, you know, Dustin is the current champion right now at Rocky Mountain Pro. Dustin, what's your favorite match all time at Rocky Mountain Pro that you've been involved in?
I think I'd probably have to go with you know, the one that I've been involved in. For me, it'd have to be, you know, just beginning of this year, man. January 4th this year at the Pepsi Center. That was like easily one of the best nights of my life. Like we had the biggest show we've ever put on, biggest crowd we've ever been in front of. We had over 6,500 people there in the Pepsi Center after a Colorado Mammoth game, and like just, you know, walking out in front of all those people was just like amazing, you know. And then I had, you know, at the time I had my stablemates there, and you know, I had Trina, and I had Abaddon with me going into battle, you know, in the title match against Big Marlon Bishop, and you know, just in front of that big crowd, walking out with the championship. And you know, man, like I said, I've been wrestling in Rocky Mountain Pro since day one, and you know, finally getting a big title shot and having it on that, you know, winning the belt at the biggest match we've ever had, the biggest show we've ever done. It doesn't get any better than that, man. Like it was
That's
awesome.
Pretty amazing story there. That's definitely, I think if I was in your shoes, that's how I'd want it to be at the current moment. Definitely, you know, biggest show. Obviously, the biggest piece of hardware right now that, you know, everybody's, you know, fighting for. And yeah, like you said, you're walking out on top. Pretty cool, man. Definitely.
Like, it kind of worked out. Like it's just kind of crazy, like twist of fate, back in the day, the first company I started with, Fusion Pro Wrestling, we had some good crowds, good solid following. I mean, we didn't have as big a crowd as this Pepsi Center crowd though, but that one too, after working several years there at the biggest show ever for Fusion Pro Wrestling, I won the championship for them too. And then now, like all these years later, we've had so many different opportunities and getting put in so many different positions in this company. For a while, it's like sometimes you want to be in a different spot than you're at, or
Definitely.
don't think that you might get there or get that shot. And finally, after a lot of years of working hard and just keep put your nose down and just busting ass, and finally getting that shot, and then like I said, to win this belt at like the biggest show ever, there's nothing better than that. So
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. Changing gears a little bit here, since we're talking still a little bit about wrestling. I think I can almost guess what your answer is going to be on this one, but I got to ask, who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Definitely Hulk Hogan. Like I said, that was the first guy that really just sucked me into watching him, and as a kid, and even now, I still rather go back and watch some old Hulk Hogan stuff, like over anything else. I think it's just kind of how it is for everybody. If you grew up in this day and age, you're gonna like the stuff now. If you grew up in the Attitude Era, you're gonna like that stuff, and Stone Cold or whoever, or The Rock or whatever. But I grew up, 80s, and so like I like Hogan and Macho and Warrior and those guys. But it's like, but yeah, Hulk Hogan was the guy that always hooked me, and just like I said, him always doing the impossible, and coming back and hulking up,
Yeah. How could you go wrong
just
with
that,
Hulk?
and just the colors, and just always seeing him like tearing his shirt and stuff, and he was always big and jacked, and seeing him flex, and like, oh damn, like that was like the only reason as a kid, like my dad used to have some weights in the basement, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was like, I need to work out and start doing some curls and stuff, and I need to get some guns like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, definitely.
That was,
Definitely.
like that. It kind of sounds corny, but it's like he's the reason, like I do almost everything that I've done since then. Like it like changed my life. It's the reason I work out is because I want to be a pro wrestler. I want to be a champion. I was like, Hulk Hogan did it. Like I got to do it. So I was like,
Definitely.
that's just what made, that's just something that clicked for me. And I was like, all right, I got to get into wrestling. I got to start working out. I got to get big. So
I hear you. And I'm on the same page with you. I'm an 80s kid. It took me a little time to adjust to this new age in the wrestling. I have came around on it, and I do appreciate it. Like I see through a lot of the goofiness that most can't. And, I listen to every podcast out there, and I look at it a lot different now. There's more of a talent behind it, and that's the appreciation I get from the local stuff, is seeing it's not a circus. There's talent behind this. But with the old stuff, as we still keep talking about the old stuff, how up to date, or I shouldn't say up to date, but if I was to ask, what would be your favorite Halloween Havoc? Since we're here in the Halloween month, and definitely here on the Eeez N Beez podcast, that is the topic of the month, is Halloween Havoc. But it's okay if you're not up to date. I've had a few people that just haven't caught up with all the old stuff. They are strictly new, and that's fine. But yourself, I being an 80s kid, I imagine you're like me. You've seen several Halloween Havocs, and I'm just curious, what's your favorite?
that's a tough one. Like I don't know about which one would be my total favorite overall. I have to go back and watch some. Like I remember, like I think the one or the ones I remember the most were probably like the height of like 90s wrestling was like 97, 98, 99. Those ones. Like I think on paper, I think I was most excited for like 98. even
Okay.
though it didn't turn out to be amazing. It wasn't
Yeah.
like as a whole show
They
on
were
paper.
hit and miss. There was,
Yeah,
my
they had some
opinion,
big matchups, but
the matches, talent wise, were 100% better in the earlier years,
yeah,
but the gimmicky and the extra stuff with it was awful.
yeah,
But it kind of almost flip flopped in the later years. And that's my opinion. But yeah, I could see 98, actually, the 96, 97, 98 era where the NWO was taken over was probably one of the more viewed Halloween Havocs, even though my opinion wasn't one of the best ones. But
yeah. I think overall, like action wise, those definitely weren't the best. Like, I think the one like from what I remember as a whole was like probably I'll say 96. Like
okay.
Hogan and Macho were on top, and they set up with the big uh, interview at the end where Piper came out unexpectedly, after he left the WWF and set up Starrcade 96, and with the two big legends reigniting their 80s feud again, and so I think. And they had a lot of other good matches on the undercard too, with like you say, with the guys at the NWO and the cruiserweights and stuff. Like, I think as
Definitely.
a whole, I'll say 96. Like, I think 98 had the best like star power because they had like the terrible Hogan and Warrior match. They had like
Yeah, that should have never
like
happened.
yeah, they had like Bret Hart and Sting, and they had like Paul and Nash, and they had like Goldberg and TDP, which was a great match. But that show as a whole kind of flopped. But I think
Yeah, I guess you could say you pick and choose your battles or your matches in that way.
yeah, I mean, I think as a show, I don't know. From what I can remember, I would go with 96 as a whole show. But I think
Okay.
just
What?
like match wise, like I think my favorite Halloween Havoc match to me would be 94 with Hogan and Flair in the cage because
Okay.
like
Yeah.
like it was just like the
I
big
will.
like rematch with the two biggest guys at the time, and you're waiting to see what happened and who was going to have to retire and
But I will
all the
say the
gaga.
only bad thing I wish they would have left out on that match was the end when they brought Brutus Beefcake in. I mean, it was like he was that cancer that just wouldn't go away from Hogan, no matter if he was
Yeah,
on Hogan's side or obviously at this point he's attacking him. But I agree. That's a great match. It's funny. I was just looking at my notes as you were talking, and that's I have 94 flipped open. I wanted to bring to your attention a match that I think that when you get some time to go back and check out. There's 2 years here where I think is possibly goes down to one of my best or favorite matches, not even to Halloween Havoc, but of all time. And in '91, it was Stone Cold. Well, I guess it was Stunning Steve Austin
yeah.
versus Dustin Rhodes. I mean, just technically, there was no flip flop, high dive, spot, nothing. This was a real match. It was as close to a shoot match with two good buddies as you can get with the time limit.
Was that
Now,
like a TV title match or something, or U.S. title match or whatever?
it was a TV championship.
That's what I
Exactly right.
figured. Yeah,
Yeah, and then
I'm sure I've seen it, but it's been a while. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that because
yeah,
I always liked those guys.
that was '91. You fast forward to '92. Now they're not 101, but it's Stunning Steve and Dr. Death Steve Williams. They're going up against at this time Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham are the tag champs.
Yeah, they were pretty good together.
Let me blow your mind. Guess what happened in that match?
Well, I can't remember.
Time limit. Draw.
Really again? Oh,
Yeah, 2 years in a row. Halloween Havoc. Same two people. Draw. What? I'll give you one more. You won't believe this, but the same two guys fight again in '93. Stunning
Really?
Steve
Damn.
Austin, and at this time, Dustin Rhodes is the U.S. champ.
I was gonna say that probably was U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, and that match actually wasn't a time draw, but it was once again. I mean, I put those three matches up against a bunch. I know they're not the best ever. It would take me forever to decide that, but
Yeah,
I
and that's
challenge
always
you.
everybody's
You
opinion.
get some free time on your hands. Go back and check those out. And all you listeners out there, whenever you have a chance, check out some of the Halloween Havoc matches. Like I said, not the whole thing is great, but there is some really hidden gems in several of these early year Havocs.
Yeah, I can't believe those two wrestled on 3 years in a row in some sort of match. And even back then, I remember, most times as a kid, you love the faces, you hate the heels. But even
Yeah.
as a kid, like I was into Stunning Steve Austin, and
Yep.
I mean,
Four
I really
Horsemen. I
liked
mean,
Dustin Rhodes as like a singles guy too early on. He was always awesome, and
right. I was
so
gonna say not to
those two together.
yeah, not to cut you off, but on that same path, yeah. I mean, look at the Four Horsemen. They were loved, loved, and they're all heels. And
Yeah,
it's kind of funny that you say that because it seemed like to me WCW had uh, their biggest stars were heels, and then
yeah,
you flip the page at WWF at the time, all of their biggest stars were obviously face. Kind of,
yeah. I never really thought about that. Obviously besides Sting, of course, but I mean,
yeah, true
other than
that, true.
that, most of their top guys were usually the heels, and um, but yeah, like you said, I think each Halloween Havoc has like two or three or more really good matches. Like even if the show wasn't great as a whole, but I mean, Halloween
Yeah,
Havoc was always one of the best pay-per-views to watch for WCW. And like you said, like those ones with 91, 92, and I know like 93 had the awesome Vader Cactus Jack, and
that was a good hardcore match. That was the Texas Death Match. That was another spin the
yeah.
wheel, make the deal. I don't know how up to date you are, Dustin, on the current wrestling scene right now, but looks like NXT is going to have their own Halloween Havoc. What do you think about that?
I saw that. I haven't seen all the shows up to date yet, but I did hear about that, and I seen like um, some pics and stuff of like they're gonna have Shotzi is gonna be the one doing the spin the wheel and the host gimmick or whatever, and so it's
Right.
like that's pretty cool that they're bringing the whole spin the wheel make a deal match back. And I always thought as a kid that was pretty awesome. Like, oh,
That's
what
what
kind of
drew
match are
me.
these guys gonna have? Yeah, you're like, is it gonna be like even
Yeah.
though most of them are similar, you're like, oh, is it gonna be a no DQ match or is it gonna be a anything
Well,
goes or falls count anywhere or steel
yeah.
cage?
In our time, the '80s kids,
It's a big
First
deal.
Blood. First Blood was a big deal.
Yeah,
Even though we saw it a little bit more back then than we did growing up in the later '90s, early 2000s. But yeah, First
yeah.
Blood was a big deal as well. Yeah, definitely the spin the wheel definitely drew me in. Still does. I'm interested to see what they make of it.
Yeah,
I,
they've been slowly bringing back some old school stuff, like mainly in NXT, but AEW's done some of that stuff too, and like the old school elements. And I think a lot of the fans, new and old, kind of dig it. Like
yeah.
for
Yep.
us that have watched like the older stuff, like it's like nostalgia stuff. I'm like, oh, I remember this was back in the day. Like this is cool. And then the newer fans are like, oh, that's different. Like this is kind of cool. They get into it too.
Yeah, and it kind of pulls on the heartstrings sometimes too, as well. Those when they bring back some of the legends and stuff that are involved in some of those classics, it's like, man, it brings back memories so easily, and it's kind
Yeah,
of
some of that
cool.
stuff will
I
never
like it
get
when
old.
yeah, exactly. Some of them guys might pass and move on, but their memories will never go away for sure.
Definitely.
For sure. All right, man. Let's switch things up here a little bit on the Eeez N Beez podcast. We're with Dustin Uhrich, the champion of Rocky Mountain Pro. Dustin, what's your favorite Halloween movie?
Halloween movie? I don't know. Like when I don't know, like I don't know if it's still my favorite. Like I'd have to think about that more. But even as a kid, like I never like I always enjoyed all the like scary movies. I never really got scared or had nightmares about stuff. But I can remember as a kid, like one of my favorite movies. Like maybe I was messed up as a kid, but my favorite movie was like the Chainsaw Massacre. And I was like, I don't know, like when I was a kid, I thought that was a cool movie.
Okay.
So
Okay,
I was
that's
always into that, and
I
I
remember
don't know.
that
There's so many good
Leatherface.
ones.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
there's so many good ones that I don't know I don't know what I would say would be my favorite Halloween movie, but like those ones and the classics, like Halloween and Friday the 13th. Like
Right.
I
Right,
think
yeah.
just same with a lot of things. Like no matter what it is, whether we're talking wrestling, movies, music, a lot of the stuff like the era that you really got into stuff is kind of what usually you like. Like
Right.
I think that's why I kind of tend to like some of the 80s, 90s stuff the
Olders.
most, or maybe early 2000s, because those were like the eras where everything really clicked for me that I really got into
Gotcha.
all
Well,
those things. So
I think we have. Are we kind of upstream in the same boat on that same topic there a little bit? Well,
what
cool.
about you?
That's. I'm a Jason fan. Just there's a lot. I'm in the same boat as you. I forget. I think it was Hazard that brought up Saul. I totally forgot about Saul. Like,
Yeah,
there's just some things that I do forget, but I am traditional, old school like you. Jason, the first one probably was my favorite, just because it scared the bejesus out of me.
yeah,
Uh, for sure, definitely. I kind of don't. I don't watch him as much as I probably should, because I like getting tensed up and scared on certain things, but you got kids, it's kind of hard to watch the scary stuff all the time. But
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. That, I don't know. Like I said, I don't watch them as much as I used to either. But yeah, that's
are,
older
are, are
stuff.
you much of a murder mystery fan?
I like some of that stuff. I don't watch much of it either. Like I said, I don't watch much of
Well,
a lot of things. But
last week we had my Lauren on here. She did a segment, murder mystery segment. She actually had Lilith Grimm as her co-host on it, and
yeah,
they actually touched on Dino Bravo's death.
okay,
Obviously everybody's seen it on probably the dark side or read about it, stuff like that. But if they hadn't, what Lauren was doing was just kind of touching on it and bringing up their theories and what they thought maybe possibly could be happen, since it was an unsolved murder. But
yeah.
she wanted me to ask you if there was any other murders you suggest, maybe for her future murder mystery segment.
Oh man, nothing that I could think of off the top of my head. Sorry. That was a good one though. I remember hearing about the whole Dino Bravo thing. Like
It,
even as a kid, like in '93, I remember like reading something in the paper that said like ex WWF wrestler shot and killed in his home, and I was like,
yeah,
what? Like
it's a
I think I still
very.
have the newspaper article somewhere too,
Oh,
like in all
really?
my collection of stuff. Like,
Man, that's cool. If you
um,
find it, let me shoot me a picture of that. That'd be great.
it
It's
might take me
definitely
a
one of
while. It's
the.
in storage, so it
All
might take
right,
a while.
no,
But I do have it. I'm pretty sure.
no worries. No. It's definitely one of the most, or one of the more tragic kind of head scratchers, and it's something that, being obviously Halloween month, we Lauren wanted to come on and try something like that, and I think it went very well. I know Lilith enjoyed it, and she's asked to come back, but yeah, so definitely if you like the murder mystery stuff, keep your ears and eyes out, and we'll be doing those in the future with Lauren. So
Yeah,
cool.
some of those are pretty cool. Like some of the I couldn't think of like any certain one, but some of those shows I like. I like to watch some of those stuff. Like you ever watch the shows like Forensic Files or like
Oh yeah,
Disappeared and
yeah.
stuff like that. Those are always like
She's
really
all
good
about
ones.
all of those. I don't even, I guess I wouldn't have to say I have to, or I wouldn't turn it on myself, but when she turns it on, I'll watch it. Like,
Yeah,
and I'm not mad about it. I actually get involved, and then next thing I know, here we are 4 or 5 episodes down the line. And
yeah.
it's like, oh man, time to go. Well, cool. As we wind things down here with the champ, Dustin Uhrich. Dustin, I'm gonna ask you a tough one here, buddy.
All right, I'm ready.
If there was a book of your life, what would the title be?
Uh, that's a good one. What would the title be? Um, I don't know what I would. I don't know what I'd call it, but I guess you just say, like just fight for what you want
Awesome.
because like I feel like for a lot of things in my life, not everything always came like right away or came easily. Um, like a lot of you want something, you want it now, but like even as a kid, I wanted something like I mean, we didn't have like a ton of money, so we didn't get stuff very often, like I mean, we weren't like starving or nothing. Like we had, a house and everything, so we were better off than a lot of people. But we we didn't always get like you want a toy or something. You didn't always get it. Like I remember after a while when I was young, I started trying to collect wrestling stuff, like any kind of memorabilia. And I remember one summer I sold a ton of my stuff, like toys and clothes and anything I could, because I wanted to buy like the newest like Hulk Hogan merchandise when he went to WCW. I wanted to buy the new trading card set. I had to
Sure.
buy the new tearaway shirt, and
Right.
because I never got any of that stuff when I was younger, because when he was in WWF, like my parents never bought me any of that stuff, and um, they would buy me like little stuff, like I'd have like the wrestling magazines or some figures and stuff like that. But most of the other stuff, if I wanted it, I had to buy it. Or later on in life, it's like, you see all your buddies and they got like the brand new PlayStation or N64 at the time, it's like, I didn't get that. I was like,
Right.
they were kind of like gifted, I'm like, I had to work for it. Or then later on in life, it's like, I want money for a car. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to go bust my ass and find a job. And, I remember, what was it, I was in, when I was in high school, I had 3 part-time jobs. I worked at a grocery store, I mowed lawns, and I delivered mattresses. So I found a way to make things happen. And same thing,
Well,
I just translated that later on in life to wrestling, like,
exactly.
so you see somebody comes in there and they get something right away, but maybe I'm not in the right position to do that if I'm in a tag team or this or that. But it's like, I'm gonna keep plugging away. Like I said, there was times where I didn't think I was gonna get a shot at this, and I finally did. And like I said, I kept fighting for what I want, and I got this at the biggest show we've ever had, and I couldn't ask for anything better than that. So yeah, fight for what you want.
That's awesome. And that kind of, I was getting ready to say, I got just 2 more questions here for you, or actually one, and then I'll let you open up. But definitely, I was going to ask, Dustin, you've been around for a while. You are a coach at Rocky Mountain, correct?
Yes.
Obviously people can learn from you, but what I want to ask you, for all my listeners out there that are maybe inspiring wrestlers or even just trying to get into the wrestling profession, what would be your advice for them?
I would say, there's like a million things I could tell you, but I would say, if you really want this, like if you really want to be a pro wrestler, like a lot of people can be a pro wrestler. Like if you want to be like an elite pro wrestler, it's going to take more of a commitment. Like it's one of those things where you kind of got to dive all in or not at all, because you can't half-ass it. Like I said, last year we had so many shows. We had probably around close to 100 shows for Rocky Mountain Pro. And each one of those shows, we have to get there early. We have to set up. We have to do the show, and then we have to tear down. And sometimes we'll do interviews after that, or whatever. You get to drive home. Like at the time, up until recently, I've lived at least an hour away from any kind of wrestling school or any show that I've ever done. So I'm driving like further than most people are. Some people have it a little worse than me, but so you got to think about, like, we probably spend whatever 5-6 hours or more each show day setting up, tearing down, doing the show, everything that goes into it. And sometimes that's after you already worked a full-time job, during the
Right.
week. Plus we have you have to train at the wrestling school. If you don't train during the week, you don't wrestle on the shows, because we want our school to be, like, our students to be better than the other ones, because there's plenty of wrestling companies that'll just let you wrestle anytime you want. That's fine, but we want to take more pride in ours, and we want our students to stand out more.
Right.
And um, they have so much opportunity now. Like when I started, we had one show a month, and we trained 3 nights a week. So now it's like you have the opportunity. You could train 5 nights a week if you wanted to, and we have whatever 2, 3, or more shows a month. Plus, if you wrestle for other companies too. But that's, I would say, just really, really think about, the commitment that you have to put into this. And because, like I said, it's like another full-time job. So you're going to be putting in whatever, at least 40 or more at your regular job, probably if you have a full-time job, and then probably close to the same at wrestling. And then, you know, not everybody, but you should be hitting the gym too. So that's a lot of extra hours during the week. And because all this stuff can only help you. Plus, you got to think about, trying to eat better and trying to do this and that. And it's like there's so much that goes into it.
Definitely
Plus,
a lot that ties in, that's for sure. I mean,
and I would say, like, no matter what level you want to get to, you still got to make sure that you can take care of yourself. Because I've seen so many people come in here and they're all gung-ho about wrestling and they're going to do this and that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I don't have money to drive to get gas to go to training, or I can't pay school. And then they like start and stop and start and stop. And it's like, you're just going to have to sacrifice and put in the extra hours and the extra work if you really want to do this. Because like I said, there's been so many people that have just quit or start and stop, and it just takes you so much longer to get anywhere. And even later on in life, there's so many people that spend so much time on this that have nothing to show for themselves. And me personally, I would rather, still take this as serious as possible, do what you can, but I'm still going to make sure that I can pay my bills and I'm not going to be homeless or something, like in 2 months or whatever. But
living your life, that's for sure. Yeah, I got you there.
Like I said, it's not easy and it's not for everybody.
Well, it definitely sounds like you said, a lot of hard work, dedication, and drive will get you there. But there's no shortcuts to be had in this profession, because, in my opinion, and probably in many others, you take the shortcut route, it's not going to get you very far, and it's probably not going to end up the way you want it to.
No, it's hard, and you get your body beat up really bad. But like, the bad stuff is bad, but when you get to the good spots, like I said, for me, when I get to the Pepsi Center, I don't feel anything, and there's nothing better in the world. Like, those good times, like, there's nothing that beats it, though.
Awesome. Well, Dustin, buddy, as we wind it down, I want to give you the opportunity, and I give everybody the same opportunity. Is there anything you want to ask old Eddie B here before we get out of here today?
What is a couple things. What drew you into wrestling, or who's your favorite wrestler and match of all time? Like, I guess those three things.
Okay.
So, well, what drew you in?
Real quickly, I'll just run through what drew me in, as probably about the same way you were as a kid, young kid in the 80s, late 80s and stuff. It was just on TV on Saturday mornings, and I have older siblings, and we have a pretty large group of friends that back in the day that would like to hang out, and the parents would do one thing, the kids would do the other. Well, the older kids were more into the wrestling before I was, because I was still too little. And then next thing I know, my parents are taking us to a wrestling event in Indianapolis, and I can't describe the feeling you can get when the wrestlers come out, and I stuck with it. I started watching it, started buying all the figures and all the stuff I could get my hands on. And then in I think it was 92, whenever WrestleMania 8 came to Indianapolis, I went back.
Yeah, it was 92.
Yeah, and when Ultimate Warrior came out to save the day, I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. There was another thing I'll touch on some other time about, but just the crowd erupting and his music, and he hit the ropes for 30 seconds, did a couple moves, and was out of there. I still to this day get chills talking about it, just because it's something that if you've never experienced it, it's well worth it. And that's just what drew me in. I will say that throughout my lifetime, I stepped away from wrestling in my later teenage years and stuff, just because I didn't want to miss the boat on anything else that was popular at the time. Obviously, I kept my hand, or I should say, kept my finger on it a little bit. I knew what was going on. I knew who was hot. Just living the fast life of being a teenager and growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, we've touched on probably a couple of my favorite matches. Like I said, the Stone Cold or Stunning Steve Austin, however you want to look at him, and Dustin Rhodes feud.
Yeah.
I can go watch it right now when we're done, and that's how good it is. I love it that much. As far as my favorite wrestler, though, it's a two-sided coin, and I say this because, as we've talked, wrestling's different now, or has changed, I should say. The new age wrestling is a little more gimmicky. I don't know. They definitely go a different route. So my new age favorite wrestler, and I think he's a great person in life and outside of wrestling as well, but he does so much for people that goes unseen, but it's Chris Jericho. But my favorite growing up all the way up until I've started this profession here was Macho Man. You just can't go wrong with his intensity. As soon as his promo started, it didn't matter if it made sense or not, which we know most of the time it didn't. But
Yeah.
just how he spoke, it drew you in, it zoned you in. And I've got younger kids now, and they know who Macho Man is, and they they to this day will mimic his "oh yeah," and the Slim Jim is hot item right now in my house. Halloween Havoc and everything. Yeah. So yeah, definitely that's roughly that's the three things. Reason why I like wrestling, my favorite match, and my favorite wrestler. So
that's cool. Like I always like to ask a lot of the students at the school that too, like what got them into wrestling, or who's their favorite wrestler. And a lot of times I can tell right away by something that they want to do or whatever. I'm like, oh, well, this guy likes Kurt Angle, or this guy likes Jeff Hardy. Sometimes you can just tell, but other times I'm like, why are you here? Like, who got you here?
Right.
It's just kind of cool to see where everybody comes from, because that's one thing that's awesome about pro wrestling is that you don't really think about. And, I've talked with a couple of the guys at Rocky Mountain Pro, and it's like, if it wasn't for pro wrestling, like, we wouldn't know most of these people. Like, you might not even talk to a lot of those same people, because maybe for the most part, maybe you don't have a lot in common with this person or that person, and everybody from different, everybody's different, like guys and girls, or guys, or different like backgrounds and ethnicities and whatever. Like, you might not be around each other because, it's just like where you're at and everything. And you're like, wow, like this just brings everybody together. And then to hear like who you like and everything, and that, brings people together too. Like, oh, I like that guy too. I like that match too. And I think all that stuff is really cool about wrestling.
That's definitely right. That's where or the way I was kind of leaning towards, like, that's why I bring you guys on here. Everybody is different, diversity, and everything is so great in wrestling. And to hear your guys' stories and to hear where you come from, I think that's way cooler, because, it's not very often now that you get to hear much about the big guys, because they are big time. But like I said, here on Eeez N Beez, we support so much of the local stuff and all the independents, because you got to start somewhere. And, that goes unseen. And that's why we have you here on the Eeez N Beez. Dustin, where can everybody follow you at?
I just if you just look up Dustin Uhrich on Facebook, Twitter, and then of course you can go to our wrestling website, rmpwrestling.com. Look us up on there. We have stuff for Rocky Mountain Pro on like any kind of social media you can think of. We're mainly, we have our main thing to watch and everything is on Twitch. You go in there and subscribe and watch all of our shows and everything. That has, like, if you subscribe on there, you get all like the back episodes, and we have like lots of random like weekly shows. It's not just wrestling. We have Lilith Grimm, like you said, she's on there doing drawings, and we have people that like Matt Yaden plays games, and so we have like all kinds of stuff besides like our wrestling. And then a lot of times on Mondays we'll have our wrestling school. You can see a little bit of our training and what we do and all that stuff. So you can check out a lot of stuff with Rocky Mountain Pro.
I'm on there all the time, checking out what you guys got going on, just topping in, saying hey. I love watching the old stuff for sure throughout the week. Definitely getting caught up on some of the stuff that I missed out when I was not here. Well, Dustin, man, is there anything else you got for me today, buddy?
Just keep your eyes peeled. We got our big show, Shocktober, coming up soon. So you're going to be seeing me in the ring defending this title here shortly. So, but don't worry, you can bet that when it's all said and done, I'll be right here back on your show next time, and I'll still be holding the gold. So
Definitely. And just for you listeners out there, do be on the lookout. I will be having Dustin back next month for a special whole episode co-host. That's right, folks. Dustin's going to be joining me. We're going to talk wrestling, sports, food, whatever he wants. We're going to do all that next month here on the Eeez N Beez. Like I said, Dustin, man, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And when Shocktober hits, I'll be looking for you. I'll be rooting you on hard there. Hey, if you need a manager, you know who to look up, buddy. I'm always available.
All right,
guys.
Somebody else in my corner. That's cool.
That's right. I'm always down to help out. So just give me that notice, and we'll take care of business, buddy.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're here with Dustin Uhrich, the Rocky Mountain Pro champion.